exploring quantum body and beyond. As you know, recently I returned from the kingdom of Bhutan and was very inspired by the vision of His Majesty the King, who wants to create a city of mindfulness based on mindfulness in Bhutan, about the size of Singapore, and city will be based on mindfulness practices, but also on the divine emotions as explored in the teachings of the Buddha: empathy, compassion, joy, equanimity, but also a location for creating a model for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So I've been exploring some of the teachings as they have come down over the centuries, or even over 2 millennia from the Buddha, and trying to find parallels with modern insights about quantum body, etc. So one of the very basic concepts in Buddhism is the non-self nature of objects. And I want to share with you what that really means. The concept of non-self nature of objects in Buddhist philosophy is also known as the emptiness, or sunyata, or non-inherent existence, frequently referred to as swambhava sunya. This is a very profound and nuanced idea that challenges our everyday conception of the world. Here are some of the key concepts of this idea of non-self nature of objects. Number one, objects lack inherent existence. This means that objects don't exist independently with a fixed and permanent essence. They are instead the product of a confluence of causes and conditions that are constantly arising and ceasing in a dynamic flow. So imagine a wave on the ocean, for example, and the ocean wave doesn't exist independently, correct? It doesn't exist independently. The wave is a pattern of behavior of the entire ocean. And similarly, a whirlpool, if you see a changing pattern, a changing whirlpool is an activity of the water in which the whirlpool is, river, ocean, whatever, rivulet. It appears to be a solid form, but it's actually just the temporary shape of ever-changing water in this example that I just gave you. The second concept here, which pertains to the non-self nature of objects, is what we might call interdependence. Everything is interconnected and interdependent. An object's existence and characteristics are not isolated, but arise from the relationship with other things. Think of a flower. Its color, fragrance, even existence depend on sunlight, water, soil, and countless other factors. So that's another aspect of the non-self nature of objects. Another aspect is what is called emptiness. This doesn't imply nothingness, but rather the absence of an independent self sufficient by itself. It implies that emptiness as formlessness is the recognition that things are empty of inherent existence, which opens the door to liberation from suffering caused by clinging to illusions of permanence or solidity. So what does that have to do with quantum body? So the quantum body is, in fact, the formless body. It's also called the causal body. And that concept exists in Vedanta as well, not only in Buddhism, is the quantum field um, giving rise to the quantum body. Now, if your physical body, which appears as a noun, is actually an activity, and it's an activity which is the confluence of modified forms of awareness, which itself is nothing. So awareness by itself is borderless, it's infinite, it's shapeless, it's fundamental, it's without cause, it's irreducible, it's incomprehensible. Awareness is, but in a sense, so is the quantum field. And so the question comes up, if our physical body is actually part of the quantum field, is the quantum field itself infinite? Now, that can be controversial, but there are many arguments for the quantum field to be infinite. Quantum fields are continuous, they exist everywhere in space and time, unlike the particles which arise from the quantum field, which are localized in time. Since space and time can theoretically stretch infinitely, so must the field. And this field, the quantum field or quantum fields, show infinite degrees of freedom, infinite number of states simultaneously. They might imply an infinite extent in which these states exist. Also, there are energy fluctuations. Even in empty space, the field exhibits tiny fluctuations in energy. Some interpretations of the quantum field suggest these fluctuations require an infinite underlying field. In any case, in Vedanta and Buddhism, the essence is formless. And being formless, it is borderless, infinite, shapeless, incomprehensible. The quantum field is like that. There's no arrow of time in the quantum field. Your physical body and even your mental body. So the mental body means mind, intellect, ego, and everything that goes with it, imagination, thoughts, feelings, emotions. That's referred to as the subtle body. And then the physical body are projections of the formless body, also called the bliss body, which has no arrow of time. What are the implications of this? The implications of this is that if we understand the non-self nature of objects, then we also understand the illusion of the separate self. In fact, there's a famous lecture of the Buddha where it's referred to as the silent sermon, and the Buddha is holding a flower in his hand, says nothing, and all his disciples are standing there. Only one, Ananda, suddenly has a look of recognition, and he and the Buddha's eyes kind of twinkle at the same time, and that's the end of the lecture. So the other disciples go to Ananda and say, all we saw is a flower. What did you see? And Ananda said, I saw the flower, but I also saw rainbows and sunshine and earth and water and wind and air and the infinite void appearing as this flower. In other words, the flower has no inherent existence by itself. It's the totality of the universe. And so too, your body has no existence by itself, nor does your mind. It's the totality of the universe. And that goes back to the original teachings, even in the Vedanta, Aham Brahmasmi. Our absolute self is the universe. Our relative self is this changing body, this changing mind, this changing world. That's relative. But if you want to experience truly ageless body, timeless mind, then we have to shift our identity from the separate self to the universal self. And once we do that, we are also liberated from the constructs of birth, death, and everything that goes along in between. Liberated from those concepts, because that which we identify with has no inherent existence, neither the separate self nor the separate body. think about this, and that's why in quantum body, the fundamental premise is that the quantum body is the bliss body. The quantum body is the formless body. And that is the only eternal self that we have. And when we experience that, then spontaneously we feel empathy, joy, compassion, equanimity. And we understand the concept of non self nature of objects. Let me know what you think.